There is a moment, and if you are over 60, you may have already felt it, when you realize that the way you walk has quietly changed. Not dramatically, not in any way that alarmed you at the time. Your steps have simply become a little shorter. Your feet do not lift quite as cleanly off the ground as they once did. You find yourself scanning the pavement ahead more carefully than you used to. And somewhere along the way, you accepted all of this as the natural feeling of getting older. It is not. It is what uncorrected aging feels like. And there is a meaningful difference between those two things. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65. Not illness, not car accidents, falls. And here is what the statistics never show you. Most of the people in that number were not reckless. They were doing exactly what they had always done. Walking to the kitchen, stepping off a curb, turning to answer someone calling their name. The fall did not come from nowhere. It came from a gait that had been quietly drifting off course for months, sometimes years, until the margin for error finally ran out. Think about what that margin means in practice. The ability to carry your groceries in from the car without thinking about it, to walk down the hall to a grandchild's room without reaching for the wall, to climb the stairs in your own home without calculating each step before you take it. These are not dramatic things. They are the texture of a life lived on your own terms. And they do not disappear all at once. They erode quietly, while the gait that was supposed to protect them goes uncorrected. The uneven curb, the loose rug, the step that came up faster than expected, those are triggers. The cause was already present long before any of that appeared. Japan has studied this problem more seriously than almost any country on earth, and the reason is straightforward. They have had no choice. Japan has the world's oldest population, and their rehabilitation medicine community has spent decades building fall prevention protocols that go well beyond what most Western physicians discuss in a routine appointment. What they found is not complicated. But it does challenge several things that most people over 60 have been told about how to walk safely. The title of this video makes a strong promise, and I want to be honest with you about what it means. No technique and no video can guarantee that you will never lose your footing. What the evidence does show, clearly and consistently, is that most falls in older adults are not random events. They are the end result of a small number of specific, identifiable errors in walking pattern that develop gradually and go uncorrected. Correct those patterns, and you remove the systematic causes behind the overwhelming majority of falls. That is the accurate version of what this video delivers. Before we get into the 6 techniques, I want to flag something that Japanese researchers found about posture. Specifically, about what happens to your fall risk when the upper body leans forward by even a few degrees. The findings were striking enough that they shifted how rehabilitation physicians approached walking assessments. I will give you the full picture at the end of this video. For now, hold on to this. It was not the size of the lean that surprised them. It was how small it had to be to matter. Leave a comment below. Tell me your age and where in the world you are watching from. I read every one of them. What follows are 7 techniques. None of them require equipment. None of them require a gym. What they require is about 20 minutes of walking a day and the willingness to pay a different kind of attention to something you have done your entire life. Number 1, conscious foot clearance. Most people, when they think about tripping, assume they simply were not paying attention. The real explanation is more specific than that and more fixable. As we age, the tibialis anterior, the muscle that runs along the front of your shin, gradually loses the firing speed it once had. What this muscle does is lift the front of your foot during the moment each step is airborne, the fraction of a second between pushing off and landing. When it weakens, the toes do not rise quite as high off the ground as they should. The gap between your shoe and the surface beneath you shrinks. On flat ground, this often goes unnoticed. On a slightly uneven surface, a lip of pavement, a door threshold, the edge of a rug, it becomes a trip. The correction is not complex, but it does require intention until it becomes habit. When you walk, consciously drive your heel down first on each step, and at the same moment, flex your toes upward toward your shin. You are not trying to walk differently. You are reactivating the full range of motion your foot was always capable of. Do this for 2 weeks on your daily walks, and the movement stops requiring thought. It becomes the default pattern again. One practical note: the surfaces where this matters most are transitions, doorways, the edge of a raised patio, the point where carpet meets tile. Slow down by half a step at transitions, not out of fear, but because your shin muscle fires most reliably when your pace gives it time to complete the movement properly. Now, if foot clearance is the problem, you might assume the solution is simply to take shorter, more careful steps. That assumption is so widespread it has become standard advice, and it is wrong. Number 2, shorten stride and what it actually costs you. The advice to take smaller steps for safety circulates widely in senior fitness communities, and it deserves to be examined rather than simply repeated. Smaller steps do reduce the distance between your center of gravity and your base of support, which sounds mechanically sensible. The problem is that short, shuffling steps drastically reduce ground clearance, which brings us straight back to the tripping problem we just discussed. And they also create a gait pattern that falls apart the moment the terrain becomes even slightly unpredictable. A full, confident stride is self-correcting. A shuffling stride is not. A 2019 study published in Gait and Posture followed adults with an average age of 71 who had experienced at least one fall in the previous year. Researchers found that the participants whose stride length was most shortened relative to their height had significantly higher fall recurrence rates than those who maintained a proportionate stride, not lower, as the shorter steps advice would predict. The determining factor was not step size in isolation. It was whether the stride pattern gave the body enough time in the swing phase to complete a full foot clearance. What this means practically: walk with intention, not timidity. A good stride length for someone your height lands your heel roughly 40 to 50% of your leg length ahead of your body. You do not need to measure this. The feel of it is a step that has a little confidence behind it, rather than one that stops early out of habit or caution. If you have been shortening your stride for years, introduce the fuller step gradually on flat, familiar ground first. Stride length and foot clearance operate on the same mechanism. They are both expressions of swing phase quality. The next technique works somewhere different entirely: your arms. Number 3, the counterbalance role of arm swing. Most people think of arm swing as incidental, the body's way of looking natural while walking. Japanese rehabilitation physicians describe it differently. They describe it as the upper body's active contribution to rotational balance, and when it disappears, the lower body has to compensate in ways it was not designed to sustain indefinitely. As your right leg swings forward, your left arm swings forward in opposition. This opposing movement, right leg forward, left arm forward, one side always counterweighting the other, stabilizes the rotation of your torso. It keeps your center of gravity moving in a straight line rather than rocking from side to side. When arm swing reduces, and it does reduce significantly in older adults, the torso begins to over-rotate with each step. That lateral sway increases the demand on your hip stabilizers and your ankle proprioceptors, the sensors in your joints that tell your body where it is in space. Over time, both systems fatigue faster than they should, and the correction here is not to force a theatrical swing. What you are looking for is a relaxed, free movement at the shoulder, elbow bent at roughly 90 degrees, hands loosely open, the arm moving forward and back rather than crossing in front of your body. Crossing the midline is a common compensatory pattern, and it actively disrupts the stabilizing function. If you are unsure whether your swing has diminished, ask someone to watch you walk from behind. A walking partner often notices the asymmetry before the walker does. Begin your daily walk with 30 seconds of deliberately exaggerated arm swing. Then let it settle into whatever feels natural. Over several weeks, natural will shift. Getting the arms right takes care of your body's rotation, but your balance depends on more than rotation. It depends on what your eyes are doing at the same time, and most people have no idea they are doing it wrong. Number 4, where your eyes go, your body goes. Most people, when they feel unsteady on their feet, assume the problem is in their legs. It is often in their eyes. Your inner ear tracks your head's movement through space. Your eyes track the world around you. In healthy walking, these two systems check in with each other constantly. And as long as both are sending consistent signals, your brain keeps you balanced without effort. The problem arises when your gaze is roving, scanning the pavement for hazards, glancing at a passing car, looking down at your feet. The visual reference point keeps moving, and your inner ear has to work harder to make sense of where your body is. In older adults, that extra load is often exactly what tips the balance system past its limit. The practical correction is simple and takes about 3 days to feel automatic. Choose a fixed point on the horizon roughly 15 to 20 feet ahead of you, and keep your gaze anchored there as you walk. Not rigidly, you will naturally glance around, but your eyes should return to that anchor point consistently. If you feel the urge to look down at your feet, resist it. Looking down drops your chin, rounds your upper back, and removes the stable visual reference your inner ear depends on. It feels cautious. It is the opposite. Number 5, the rhythm that protects you. Where gaze direction addresses how your eyes and inner ear work together, cadence lives in a different part of the brain entirely. It is the timing center, the part of your brain that coordinates the rhythm of muscle firing across both legs simultaneously. These are neighboring systems, but they are not the same system. Treating them as if they were leads to corrections that only fix half the problem. In Japan, the concept of walking with a deliberate, steady rhythm has been embedded in physical culture for generations. Older Japanese adults who practice forms of rhythmic walking, whether through traditional walking disciplines or structured rehabilitation programs, show measurably better gait consistency than those who walk at whatever pace feels natural in the moment. The reason is not mysterious. A consistent cadence, a stable number of steps per minute, reduces the variability between steps. And step-to-step variability, more than average speed, is one of the strongest predictors of fall risk in older adults. You do not need a metronome, though one can help. What you need is to walk with intention rather than distraction. If you walk while talking on the phone, you almost certainly slow down unpredictably, shorten steps inconsistently, and lose the rhythmic pattern that keeps both legs coordinating properly. If you walk with music, choose something with a tempo between 100 and 120 beats per minute. This range corresponds to a brisk, stable walking cadence for most older adults. Walk to the beat rather than letting the beat be background noise. The difference between those two things is the difference between a walk that trains your nervous system and one that simply passes the time. Cadence takes care of the rhythm between steps, but there is one specific moment in every walk, one that happens dozens of times without you noticing, when rhythm alone cannot save you. That moment is the turn. Number 6, the pause and pivot. Here is something that Western medicine has been slow to incorporate into standard fall prevention advice, despite Japanese rehabilitation data making it very clear. Turning, changing direction while walking, is when falls happen most often. Not on straightaways, not on stairs, though stairs carry their own risks. Turns. Specifically, the combination of a turn and a forward step taken at the same moment. The reason is mechanical. When you step and turn simultaneously, your center of gravity shifts laterally at the exact moment your base of support is narrowest. One foot off the ground, the other bearing the full load. For a younger person with fast reflexes and sharp joint awareness, the window of instability is too brief to matter. For an older adult whose body takes just a fraction of a second longer to sense and correct that shift, that same window is long enough to lose the correction. The Japanese rehabilitation approach to this is called pause and pivot, and it does exactly what the name suggests. Before changing direction, complete the step you are already taking. Both feet on the ground, weight stable, then pivot in the direction you intend to go. The pause does not need to be long. A half second is enough. What it does is ensure that your center of gravity is never shifting laterally and vertically at the same time. The two demands are separated by that brief stop, and the fall risk collapses. Practice this at home first, where the stakes are low. Walk to a wall, stop fully, then turn around. Walk to the kitchen counter, stop, then turn to the sink. Within a week, it will feel less like a technique and more like common sense. Because once you feel the difference between a controlled pivot and a mid-step spin, you will not want to go back. 6 techniques. Each one removes a specific cause of falls. But there is a 7th, and this is the one I want you to pay closest attention to, because it sits underneath all of the others. Number 7, the lean you cannot feel. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that Japanese researchers found something about posture that changed how rehabilitation physicians approach walking assessments. I also told you it was not the size of the lean that surprised them. It was how small it had to be to matter. Before I give you the number, let me show you the mechanism. Because once you understand why it works this way, the study result will not feel surprising at all. It will feel inevitable. Your body maintains balance during walking through a continuous process of small corrections. Every time your foot lands, your ankle, knee, hip, and core make micro adjustments to keep your center of gravity over your base of support. These corrections happen faster than conscious thought. They are reflexive. Now consider what happens when the upper body tilts forward even slightly. Your center of gravity shifts forward of where it should be. Your body is no longer correcting from a neutral position. It is constantly pulling itself back from the edge of tipping. Every single step becomes a small recovery rather than a stable progression. The correction system never gets to rest. And in older adults, a correction system that never rests is a correction system that eventually fails, usually at precisely the wrong moment. A study conducted by researchers at Kyoto University tracked 83 community-dwelling adults between the ages of 70 and 82 over a 12-month period. They measured the degree of forward lean in each participant's upper body at the start of the study. Then they followed the participants for falls. Those with a forward trunk lean of just 3 degrees or more than twice as likely to experience a fall during the study period as those who walked upright. 3 degrees. An angle so small that none of the participants were aware they were leaning. Their bodies had adapted to it so gradually that it felt like standing straight. This is what makes posture the root cause that sits beneath every other gait error in this video. Start with foot clearance. When the trunk leans forward, the pelvis tilts to compensate, and that pelvic tilt shortens the airborne phase of every step, which is exactly where the toes fail to clear the ground. From there, stride length shrinks because the body is already managing more forward momentum than it can fully control and instinctively pulls back. And once the upper back rounds, the shoulders lock into a position where the opposing arm movement we discussed earlier becomes mechanically restricted. 1 lean, 6 techniques undermined. The whole pattern cascades downward from the spine. The correction is the one that requires the most consistent practice, which is precisely why it delivers the most durable results. Stand against a wall once each day, heels touching the baseboard, shoulders touching the wall, and the back of your head touching the wall. If that last contact point is difficult or impossible, your forward lean has become structural. Hold that position for 30 seconds and simply feel it. That sensation, that moment of contact between the back of your skull and the wall, is what upright actually feels like. Carry it with you when you walk. During your daily walk, use a simple mental cue. Imagine a cord attached to the crown of your head, drawing you gently upward. Not forcing your chin back or your shoulders down, just lengthening the space between your ears and your shoulders. Combined with the gaze anchor we discussed earlier, this cue keeps the trunk naturally upright without tension or rigidity. Give this 4 weeks of consistent daily practice. The wall check takes 30 seconds. The mental cue during your walk costs nothing. What changes is not just your fall risk. Your stride opens up. Your arm swing returns. Your gaze naturally lifts. The other 6 techniques in this video reinforce each other more effectively when the trunk they all depend on is aligned. Here's the short version of everything in this video. Most falls are not accidents. They are the end result of gait patterns that drifted off course and were never corrected. Every technique we covered today addresses one part of that drift. And they all work better when your posture is giving them a stable foundation to build on. Full practical notes for each technique are in the description below. Take them at your own pace. You have given me just a few minutes today, and I am grateful for that. At the start of this video, I described a feeling, the quiet realization that the way you walk has changed. That feeling is not a sign that something is over. It is a sign that something needs attention. And now you know exactly what that something is. Start with one technique on your next walk, just one, and add the others as each one begins to feel natural. That is how durable change happens. Not all at once, one quiet step at a time. Leave a comment and tell me which technique you are starting with. If someone you love walks every day and has never heard any of this, share this video with them. It costs nothing and it may matter more than either of you expects. Take good care of yourself. I will see you in the next one.